process is probably pretty different. Where he's starting from and where I'm starting from are probably a little bit opposite ends of the spectrum. So it's kind of interesting to see where you end up at. Yeah, I'm Anny, and I'm a classically trained artist, and I live here in Spokes. You know, I've just always been intrigued by the figure. I just think the human element that, you know, classically it's always been a subject matter that generations and generations of artists have been drawn to, and it's just, the figure is so dynamic and complex, and just endless options that you can use it, you know, to sort of tell a story, or you can just, the actual form itself is just endlessly complex and interesting.
My name's Luke Gorder. The figure, I think, is the most exciting thing for me, anyways, to draw or paint, because it's challenging. You can't really fake anything like you can with a landscape or even like a still life or something like that. So that's a big part of it, and I just like putting a human inside of this paint world and watching that kind of come to life.
I'm sort of interested right now in my own work and exploring a little bit more conceptually, trying to develop maybe more of a narrative, or asking myself questions of like, what direction do I want to take my work in? How do I want to, you know, build conceptually off of my foundation that I have? So I was asking Luke, you know, where his starting point is.
A lot of it happens with accidents, and I like to start out really loose and then tighten up. I kind of just choose two things that I think look cool together, and then
You start with the visual, sort of.
Yeah.
That's what sparks it.
Yeah. And then I figure out how I'm going to mesh these two photographs together, or how I'm going to put this photograph, or how this child is standing, and put that in this setting that I want.
Before I do a larger painting, I'll kind of investigate the subject and investigate the form, get to know kind of their features and their structure, and just like my way of investigating is just observing and doing drawings and stuff. What has always drawn me to realistic work, I mean, I've always been intrigued with draftsmanship and studying nature, so it's very observational, you know, foundation of just really learning to draw and paint what I can see, and then hopefully from that foundation being able to build on that and express, you know, whatever, if there's certain themes that I want to express or narrative that I want to tell, then I have the tools that I've now garnered to be able to use those to, you know, better express what it is that I want to say.
The animals, I think, are the human aspect of it. Like I like to put humans in an animal type pose or setting, because it's a lot easier for people to put empathy on animal a lot of times more so than a human. And I don't know, it's sort of like when you see a villain do something really horrible in the movies, but then he kicks the dog on the way out the door, everybody cringes when that happens, because they're so desensitized to violence and stuff like that. So I think that's a big part of it, and then I like to play off the similarities and differences between humans and animals. So
I have all of these oriental rugs and stuff that my parents had growing up, and so I just have them all kind of stockpiled in my studio, and I'm really intrigued with the patterns and how that plays off of, you know, the human figure and the contrast, the juxtaposition between the two. And so there's like the simplicity and the elegance of the figure, but then this complex pattern behind it is just really interesting to me.
The painted faces was the idea, and those were done a long time ago. And so I was thinking a lot about like a transition from boyhood to adulthood, and what it means to be a man in society today, and like the rituals that we go through when that happens. And like I was reading about these boys in Africa that would paint their faces and go through this whole like tribal ritual, and I didn't really have anything like that, so I wanted to paint something like that as sort of like armchair traveling,
Okay.
I guess.
I think obviously the common place being that we are both dealing with the figure and that human element, that he's starting off on a conceptual foundation and I'm starting off on a very observational foundation. It's kind of sort of like different methodologies, you know, but it's interesting to see like the end product and how those contrast.
I would definitely paint like her if I could. Not technically so much, but if I had the patience to paint
You
like
don't
that.
feel like you have the patience to do?
No, and I think I like the contrast between representation and abstraction in the same work.
Now I feel like I've really worked on the trade, the craft of learning how, you know, to use my tools, and now I can kind of just keep building on that. So it feels like I've got lots of years to explore that, which is exciting.
It never comes out the way I had it in my head originally, which I think is the interesting part of painting, art making in general, sort of just finding out what happens along the way.